Hello, everyone. My name is Snowy Rahi, and I'm a psychologist, and I'm associated with ASCC as a senior research analyst.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amna Ansari. I'm also a psychologist and I'm also associated with ASCC as a senior research analyst. Today, as a guest, we have with us Dr. Vasvi Acharya. She is the managing director, IIFPL, and she has been working in the domain of early childhood education for the past 2 decades. She is the founder and chairperson of Early Child Development Forum, ECDF, and Child Education Research and Development Center, which are both initiatives of DN Acharya Foundation for Children and Women Welfare. Dr. Vasvi has come up with the concept of an innovative preschool, which was launched as a brand in 2013, named Tender Petals. She heads the R&D team of Tender Petals. A very good morning, ma'am.
A very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here, ma'am. So, since we've been having a lot of conversation around child development, you have a forum around it. Um, we'd like for you to, just tell us what you think about early childhood development and what role does it play in a person's life.
Thank you for the question, Rahi. The first 7 years of a child's life is the most significant, and the future of the child depends upon it, as it forms the bedrock or what we call the foundation of a child's life and future success. So now, why are the early years so important? Before I get into that, let me tell you that we have the need to look at the period even before the child is born, the prenatal period. The baby in the mother's womb hears the sounds, experiences the sensations, and senses the feelings the mother feels. For instance, we often hear our elders say how an expecting mother should be having healthy food, stay away from negative environment and people, avoid harmful habits like smoking or drinking, listen to soothing music, stay active, happy and calm. Even the movements of the baby inside the mother's womb are vital for its development, and so forth. So research shows, this is very interesting, that an embryo with the same genetics, if implanted in the uteri of two different women living in two different environments, or one woman at the same, the same woman, but at different times of her life, the epigenetics of the embryo would alter based on different aspects of the environment she's subject to. So see how powerful it is, right? Even if the prenatal period. Now, when we look at the first 7 years of a child's life, we see that during these years, the brain develops in a quantum way. The neuron starts to form, and the neural network, which is a giant network of nerves and fibers, and is connected with the brain, the processing powerhouse starts to work. So the neuron sends signal at 100 miles per hour, which has the power to make one think, make decisions, imagine, sense, etc. Right? Or absorb. They have the power to do all of that. A baby right after birth starts to feel the experiences in the environment and absorb sensations that sends signal to the brain, which in turn turns it into reality. So what we think, like we say, what we think is what comes out. Therefore, what the child feels and experiences in these crucial years, be it positive or negative, create pathways that lead to how the child perceives the situations or react to it. The message it sends to the body. So providing a responsive, nurturing, and stimulating experience or an environment establish the wiring of the brain connections. So children who are well supported and nurtured physically, emotionally, socially, intellectually will develop multitudes of neuron connections that will serve them well throughout their life, right? So early brain development establishes a child's social competence, cognitive skills, emotional well-being, language, literacy skills, physical abilities, and is a marker for well-being in school and in life resilience. So I feel these years are most crucial in a child's life.
Right. So I think we can also quote Freud and how important his theory was regarding early childhood. As you've been working for 2 decades with preschoolers, we would want to know the challenges that you face while working with preschoolers and their parents.
Amna, that is a challenging question because I work with children, and we actually do not look at all these as challenges. But then, yes, let me tell you, as an educator in the domain for the last, working in this domain for the last 22 years, um, I would like to point out that we face more challenges with the parents than with the children, right? So in my life, I've met different kind of parents. Some overprotective, like helicopter parenting, they do. Some almost absent from their child's life and the school. We need to, get in touch with them constantly to get them into school or to make them understand what the child is, what the child's progress is. Some are very cooperative and congenial and so forth. But I have generally sensed from my interactions over these years that most parents lack the knowledge or skills of nurturing or rearing the children in the right manner. So 70% of them do not even realize the importance of the first 7 years of their child's life, and in fact treat them very casually by refusing to acknowledge the child's emotional needs, killing their creativity and inquisitiveness by scolding them, breaking their self esteem by expecting them to perform like the kids, the children in the neighborhood, or by comparing them to the societal yardsticks. So there's a lot of comparison and competing, which parents do with children, with their children and their peers. And also parents sometimes display abusive behavior and so on. So these kind of things actually influence the child's life. And this kind of lack of meaningful parenting is a major challenge I think we face in this sector. And the second being less awareness about the importance of quality early childhood education. So most parents feel that education starts from class 1, the formal school, and therefore pre-primary education hold very less or no value for them. They fail to understand that the child's future depends on these initial years where 85% of their character, personality, and behavior is shaped. This lack of awareness works against the child and even the early childhood setup. As far as children, are concerned, the challenges that we face from them is mostly pertaining to the environment, be it the family or the neighborhood, the psychosocial development, which is Eric Erickson would say, said of the child in the first 3 years that they had at their home settings, that sometimes presents challenges for us to fix once the child lands up in the school scenario. Yeah, so parents find it very difficult to accept that the child may have undergone some sort of trauma or have been subject to some kind of stressful situation in the home environment, or may not have been nurtured in the right manner. So these symptoms are reflected in the child's behavior in school, like inability to manage anger, throwing tantrums, display of aggression, and other unsocial behavior traits. I would also say many children, when they first come into the preschool setting, suffer from separation anxiety. I think it's most, not many. So that is another thing where we need to, actually work a lot with the child to get them into the school setting, to actually make them comfortable, where they start to love learning. We also see children display ADHD, and they find it difficult to sit in one place, and that is a challenge for facilitators and other children in the class. So definitely there are a few challenges that we face from children as well, but I feel they are negligible and can be handled.
Right. That was a very, a very insightful conversation that you just kind of told us. The points that you portrayed right now and you mentioned, Dr. Vasavi, are very, very insightful. So when we're talking about the ecosystem and we're talking about the child, that, there are certain challenges, most of them posed from the ecosystem. So that would mean that the child will have had to develop certain qualities in order to still grow while facing all those challenges, because when you are facing them, the child is also facing them. So what, according to you, is the role of self-awareness and social awareness in the life of a preschooler?
Well, Rahi, when we take it from where what are the challenges we face and how self-awareness works in favor of a child, to actually bloom into an individual who is, we call it a rounded individual. So self-awareness basically means being aware about one's needs, desires, and feelings, being regulated, conscious, alert, and the ability to understand one's feelings, right? How am I feeling right now and how I manage it. When we describe self-awareness in the context of a 3 to 7 year or an 8-year-old, now I think it is the ability to understand emotions, label them, pause and feel, and manage them with consciousness, right? So it has a lot to do with being mindful. So we do a lot of work on developing mindfulness of children. That is being mindful, living in the present at the moment, right? Not being anxious, not being, kind of showing anxiety. So I would say self-awareness is essential to a child's day-to-day life in many ways, because they can perceive a situation, they would know how to respond, their behavior, to a situation, and enjoy life. Because when we react, we kind of, lose it all, right? So when we start responding, we start enjoying also. So it allows awareness and control over what one does. It allows healthy relationship with a lot of empathy and compassion. It helps one focus, concentrate, think, become resilient, also perform better in school, convert negative emotions to positive emotions that we have been seeing all this while we are in the COVID situation, and stay calm in the face of adversity, right? So self-awareness, with the passage of time, translates into social awareness, whereby the child broadens the horizon to include fellow children, elders, others in the ambit, to develop long-lasting positive relationship through which they learn from each other, ask questions, solve problems, enjoy, play, work as a team, and so forth. So man is a social animal, but I feel both self-awareness and social awareness are skills that need to be cultivated and practiced.
All right. So, Dr. Vasi, now that we know that social and awareness and self-awareness are both very important for emotional development as well as for the child's personality development. But there's one domain which is most focused by parents, which is the academics, right? So we would want to know the importance of social and emotional learning in the academic performance of a child, how that helps in academic performance and improvement.
It surely does, in a very big way. So let me give you a small example. There was one experiment which was done by Walter Mischel, and that was a research where she allowed children to, have a choice. That is, take one marshmallow right at that moment, or wait for 15 minutes and get get a gift of 3 marshmallows, say, right? So the research showed that children who were able to delay eating the marshmallows to obtain the larger prize were more likely to do well in school and in their career for decades following the study. So this was a study that went for a long time. The ability to delay gratification and regulate one's emotions and behavior is a key component of a set of skills we often refer as the social-emotional skills. So research shows that social-emotional learning does in fact enhance child's academic success while preventing problems such as mental health disorder and violence, because they know how to regulate, right? So social-emotional competencies empower children to grow self-aware and confident at the same time. And like I already said, they learn to kind of manage emotions and have compassion and empathy. So all these all these leads to not only good behavior, but also improved test scores, which you said academics, right? The social emotional learning help in developing neutral awareness and mindfulness. To be able to respond rather than react, children need to cultivate these executive functions of their neocortex, which is the frontal lobe. We call it the frontal lobe of the brain, as well as the heart-centered intelligence, which we generally refer to as the IQ. The frontal lobe is the EQ. So social emotional learning helps children to blend logical and rational thinking with feelings like empathy, compassion, kindness, self-regulation, and so forth, that enables optimal brain development as well as social connection and collaboration, which is so much needed in the day-to-day world, right? We need to collaborate. We don't work as a single individual. In other words, SEL affects learning by shaping children's developing neural circuitry, particularly the executive functions, which also include proficiency in adaptable thinking, planning, self-motivation, self-control, working memory, time management, I must say, and organization. So as children feel safe and learn how to inhabit disruptive emotional impulses, they exhibit greater self confidence, and also enhance memory. Now, when we are talking about memory, memory is what works in favor of our academic excellence, or the way we deal with a thing, right? So even if a child who is very aware gets a question, if they're looking at it very academically, which they are not able to solve logically because they're, because they don't know the logical answer to it, yet they can apply a lot of creativity to answer that question, and do like make a way for it. So they, and also, with all these qualities, children enjoy the learning process and readily engage and fully immerse themselves in gaining new information and skills, and thereby perform better. So, all SEL, I mean, the social emotional learning or the skills that they develop over a period of time works in their favor to do well academically.
Well, since you've mentioned some, quite a few benefits of SEL, and we can see that it is backed by scientific research, so it is not just something over the top of our heads. Uh, During the COVID time, a lot of parents did mention that they were struggling with how will their child lag in developing social skills or social behaviors. So, towards, just to bring that concern to light, how would you think that a child can develop social skills specifically in the age group of 4 to 8, be it during COVID or otherwise?
See, social skills are developed in various ways. Like when we are looking into our curriculum, be it online, like right now it's COVID and all children are locked up in their houses, but then we have our online classes, right? So when we see, if I talk about the Tender Petals curriculum, we have so many social emotional development activities in the curriculum where the children involved in role play, where they're doing, certain skits and drama, which is concerned, which is about empathy, compassion, how we need to feel about the environment, how we need to feel about our fellow human beings, how we can, how not regulating time or managing time can be harmful for us in the future. So we give all those lot of role plays to children where they learn all these skills. Also, there are, children generally are children are generally self-centered. They're like self-centric, I would say. So that is one behavior where when they start coming into the school, or in an environment where there are more children, where they need to share and care. So these are activities we generally see today in the nuclear families. Children are even more self-centric because they don't want to share. They do not have a brother or a sister or a sibling to share with, or they get the full attention. So when they come into a setting where they are kind of, getting partial attention or divided attention, they get angry, right? So the teacher, we have certain activities where we teach children to understand, wait for their turn, my turn, and not only think that they are the center of that entire universe. So they start to learn social skills that way. Also, I would say that storytelling has a huge role to play, because stories is such a powerful tool through which, we learn so many things in our lives when our grandma or our grandpa used to tell us stories, right? So even social behavior can be taught through storytelling. And the most crucial thing I must say is the parent being the role model. Now, if I am saying be social, be good, be compassionate, be empathetic, and I am displaying abusive, rude behavior, I am not able to, accept the people in my social surrounding, I am fighting. How would my child learn social behavior? So children generally do not listen, they copy. So what we are showing them is what they are learning. So as if parents say that in today's setting, how do we get our children become more social? It's through their proactive behavior. They have to take some steps which will make children see that this kind of behavior is an acceptable behavior. This is a good behavior. So that is how the school also, be it, even from a distance mode of learning that we are doing right now, and also the parents at home, the people in the household. I mean, it's not only parents, sometimes it's a joint family. So they can also help the child develop a lot of social skills. And then there are a lot of beautiful activities that are there. that they can, look into and start practicing with the children.
Right. So that was again something which is very important and needs to be talked about. The things that you just mentioned, the art of storytelling is something I think, the other day we had a conversation with a storyteller, and he pointed out that our brains are wired to remember stories way longer.
Absolutely.
So I think all of us do remember things that were taught to us in the form of stories when we were kids much more vividly, as opposed to things that were just, like you said, do this, do that, as opposed to parents not participating in it as well. So I think, Dr. Vasavi, this has been a very, very insightful session. And we have some major takeaways from today's session. So thank you so much for taking out the time from your busy schedule and coming here and giving us, this talk over some very important things when it comes to social emotional learning and preschoolers specifically. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Snowy and Amna, for having me. And I'm more than glad to share my 2 cents to what I know and what I've been doing in all these years. And I hope that benefits. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.